Hey folks, this is Vince with Ad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to check out Fairy Tale. It's for 2 to 5 players for ages 13 and up, with the average play time being about 30 minutes. So the idea of this game is incredibly simple. Draft cards. The player that can draft cards the best will have earned the most points and win the game. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at the components and see how the game is played. Okay, so here's a very brief look at your components. You've got your box here. You've got your instruction manual here. The instruction manual is about, quote-unquote, 8 pages front and back. When I say pages, obviously I don't mean 8.5 by 11, standard sheet of paper. But as you can see, there is a little bit to read. As far as the actual components, like the cards and all that, there are 110 here. 80 of them are basic cards, and 30 of them are expert cards. And you can see that they're expert via the little E in the bottom right-hand corner of these cards. So for your first few games, what you're going to want to do is definitely put these aside and only use the basic cards, because the game will be difficult enough to understand. And it's not that the game is like really all that difficult to play. I mean, I'll show you in a minute how rounds work. But if you take a look at these cards, you're going to look and be like, what does this mean? I don't know what the heck all these symbols mean. What is this fairy? What's the number 6 mean? What's this down here? Star times 3. There's a guy here. There's a yellow symbol. There's a asterisk equals your elven warriors picture down here. There's a little 4 out of 110 up here. It's just, when you look at these cards, you're going to be overwhelmed. Like, sensory overload was the first thing that I happened to experience when looking at these cards. Like, I was just so overwhelmed by all this stuff. But just to quickly sum up what all this means, that basically this is the point value of the card in the upper left-hand corner here. Now, some cards just have a number, like 6. So, at the end of the game, if you have this card in front of you, again, there are some exceptions, because, some of these cards do work together with others. But in most cases, the number listed up here is how many points you'll earn at the end of the game. Now, if the card has any special abilities, you'll see it listed here, like you flip 1 symbol here, and that means you flip 1 card. Now, you'll be able to flip cards up and down, like over and, you can flip them and unflip them in this game. When they're flipped and face down, they don't actually score any points. So that's one thing you have to keep an eye on. So, your opponent may be able to flip some of your cards face down, whereas, you could play cards like this to maybe flip something back up, that kind of thing. Now, there are some other cards that have this little asterisk here, and, some of them have stipulations, like, it'll be worth 3 points times the stipulation down here, and this little asterisk says equals your Knights of the Round Table. Now, this is a bronze dragon card. So basically, this will score points based on how many Knights of the Round Table cards you have in your score pile along with this. If you have 0 Knights of the Round Table cards in your score pile, 0 times 3 is 0. So this card won't be worth any points if you do not have this card in your victory point pile as well. If you only have 1, it'll be 3 points. You have 2, it'll be worth 6 points, and so on. Same with this, only it's a little bit different. It says here, asterisk times 3. This is a bard. And it says here asterisk equals your elven warrior. So you need elven warrior cards in your victory point pile in order to actually see any points off of this card. And there are more cards in the deck that behave somewhat similarly to this. Okay, so the game is played over a series of rounds, and they could be called drafts too if you want to. Basically 4 drafts. And at the beginning of every round, each player receives a hand of 5 cards. Now I'm going to show you how a typical round plays out without any regard to the cards. It'll make it a little bit more simple that way. So let's just go ahead and do this. Players are going to take a look at their hand. They're going to go ahead and choose one. Again, I'm not going to be too strategic here. They're going to choose one to keep and pass the rest around. So this one's going to do that. This player is going to keep that card, pass these over. This player is going to keep this card and pass these over. Okay, so now this player has 4 cards, this player has 4 cards, and this player has 4 cards. And they're just going to keep repeating that process. This player is going to take a look at the 4 cards that he just received from that player and choose one, and then pass these 3 to the next player. This player is going to do the same thing. Choose one, pass it over. This player is going to choose one to keep, pass it over. Now, this player player has 3 cards to look at from the previous player. And it's worth noting real quick that for the first and third round, the cards will go clockwise around the table. For the second and fourth round, the cards will go counterclockwise. And this will continue. Players will continue drafting until each player has 5 cards again. And so basically the 5 cards that they start with in their hand, they may not necessarily end up with at the end of this. So the player will have 5 cards. What they'll get to do is take a look at these 5 cards. Now they'll end up choosing 3 of them to play. And to do that, players will go ahead, choose one, put it face down, choose one, face down, choose one, face down. And then they'll all reveal them simultaneously. And this will go into their victory pile. And then they're going to go ahead and do the same thing. They're going to choose their second card. Do that. Okay, this player's going to choose one face down, this one face down. They're going to reveal them at the same time. These go into their victory piles too. There you go. And then the third and final card, they'll choose one, face down, face down, face down. Reveal them all at the same time. They go into your victory pile. There you go. So now these players have these cards in their victory pile, and that will end the first round. And basically, these cards are discarded. Players are dealt 5 new cards for the next round, and this will continue over the course of 4 rounds, and then at the end of 4 rounds you'll have 12 cards sitting in front of you. Players will calculate their points based on the cards in front of them, and whoever has the most will win the game. Okay, now keep in the back of your mind that was all done without any regard to the cards, okay? Now there are some things I want to quickly touch on. I'm not going to go over everything in the rule book, but I do want to touch on some of this stuff. Whenever you are revealing cards one at a time during that second part of a round, you're also going to want to pay attention to the actions here. It says, for example, you flip one. So as players are revealing these cards one at a time, they're going to be resolving these actions in the appropriate order. During the basic game, it's just unflipped and flip. So basically, the unflip actions will occur before the flip actions. During the expert game, and I have to bring out the manual here, it's hunt, unflip, flip, and draw. So during the expert game, there are some cards in the expert deck that introduce some extra actions that players could possibly take. Like the hunt, for example, will prevent another player from using a particular faction, a faction's ability or whatever the case is. You'll also have draw, which allows you to draw cards. So there's that. And then, of course, flip and unflip just simply means, flipping cards face up or face down. As players accumulate these cards in front of them, they'll be able to use the flip and unflip to flip their opponent's cards while unflipping their own. And that's very important because a card that is face down at the end of the game will not be worth any points. So not only do you have to pay attention to the cards that you're chaining in front of you as you're playing, but you also have to pay attention to the special abilities of the other cards in play and the cards that are being passed around the table. Now, just to quickly give you a look at some of the cards in the expert deck. And I'll be honest, I really haven't messed with the expert deck too much because I'm still trying to get a handle on the base game. I think the base game is difficult enough for me. But you've got this trickster here, and basically this trickster is worth -1 point, but it can take the name of any card you need it to. Like some of these cards require other cards in order to score points. Trying to see if there's an example. The Bard, for example. Okay, this may not be the best example because it's not exactly high scoring, but some of these cards are actually worth like 8 or 9 points, but they need another card in order to be worth 8 or 9 points. This Trickster, whenever you have that in your victory pile, can become the card that is needed here in order to for the other card to score this up here. It's just you have to pay -1 in order to do that. So let's say that you have a card that's worth 9 points, but it needs a special card in order for that to affect, or for that to actually happen. You can use this Trickster and then name it this card down here, and then the other card will be able to score. It's just you'll have to score -1 point for using the Trickster. So that's what the Trickster can do. You've got Hunt, for example. I already explained what Hunt was. The Egg of Chaos, that's an interesting one, counts as Children of the Dragon, Mischievous Fairy, and Homesteaders. And basically, these are all cards that need more of the same card in order for them to work. Like, for example, the Homesteaders, there's an asterisk here. That's it. There's no point value whatsoever. It's just an asterisk. And down here it says asterisk your Homesteaders. So the more Homesteaders you have, the more these cards are worth. So if you have one Homesteader in your victory point pile, this is worth 1, you'll score 1 point. If you have 2 Homesteaders in your victory pile, then each card will be worth 2 points. This will be 2, and the other card will be worth 2, giving you 4 points between those 2 cards, and so on. The Egg of Chaos counts as some of these cards: Children of the Dragon, Mischievous Fairy, and Homesteaders. So you'll be able to add a Homesteader to your victory point pile to give yourself more points. This thing is only worth 2 by itself, but it'll add an additional name to this and give you more points. So when you have 2 Homesteader cards, this one will give you 3, and then make each one worth 3 points. This is still worth 2, but all of your Homesteaders will be worth 3. I know it's a little confusing, and I apologize. This is where the expert deck can get a little confusing at times. This is why I recommend doing the basic deck until you get a handle on the base game. Okay, so there you have it, a very brief look at Fairy Tale. It's important to stress that I did not cover all of the rules found in the manual. This was just to give you a general overview so that you could see how the game was played. I've basically reviewed the game already based on what I've already said. This game is deceptively simple. It's very easy to play. You get 5 cards, you do a draft, you end up with 5 cards again, but not necessarily the ones that you started with. You play 3 of those 5 cards into your victory point pile. Some of those cards have special abilities, and some of them will chain together to give you more points. And that's really what this game is all about, chaining your cards together while trying to stave off any attacks that your opponents might have. And this is a game of big decisions, because when you've got 5 cards in your hand and you're looking at them, and okay, you can't play them all. You can only play one. You can only keep one in front of you, and you're going to have to pass the rest around, hoping that the other ones that you want to play, your opponents won't play, and they'll come back to you at some point. So there's a lot of decisions to be made in this game. I think it's an excellent game. It's a little confusing at first, I will grant you that. I occasionally have to scratch my head at some of these card effects and what to do, but I think over time I'll become a little bit more comfortable with the game. Definitely keep the expert cards out until you learn the base game, but the expert cards do add a little bit more to the game once you're ready for them. The artwork is fantastic. I mean, there is a lot of sensory overload on these cards, like I said, but I have to say the cards are of great stock, like physically, like they shuffle very... Sorry, there's someone at the door. The cards shuffle well, so that's not a problem at all. And I'm just going to wrap this up because I've got company. So yeah, excellent game, highly recommended. It's only 10 or 15 bucks on Amazon, so go check it out. If you want to check out my full written review, you can at www.dadsgamingaddiction.com. If you haven't already, subscribed to my YouTube channel. That way you can keep up to date with any new content I happen to publish. This is Vince, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.